Most men go through their days without realizing they're caught in an invisible loop, one that silently erodes their strength and self-control. They wake up, go through the motions, and before they even recognize it, their hands reach for their phones. Their minds seek out the same escape, and their willpower quietly crumbles. It feels harmless, like just another habit, a way to release stress, to kill time, to entertain oneself. But beneath the surface, something much deeper is happening. Each time you give in, you aren't just indulging in a moment of pleasure. You are giving away a piece of your power. It happens so easily, so frequently, that it feels automatic. A few minutes turn into a routine, and soon that routine turns into dependency. You don't question it because it feels like a choice. But is it? If you were truly in control, would you still do it? Or has it become something that controls you? Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." The strength of a man is determined by his ability to master himself, not by the external forces that pull him in different directions. And yet, every time you succumb to this cycle, you're reinforcing weakness, teaching your mind to seek easy gratification rather than true fulfillment. What starts as a simple indulgence slowly chips away at your discipline. You feel drained, unfocused, and restless without fully understanding why. This habit doesn't just steal your time. It steals your energy, your drive, your ability to take control of your own life. Every time you give in, you're making a silent decision to be ruled by impulse rather than by reason. And the worst part, you don't even notice it happening. The illusion of control keeps you trapped, making you believe you can stop whenever you want. But deep down, you know the truth. If it were that easy, wouldn't you have stopped already? The real battle is not with the habit itself, but with the part of you that justifies it, the part that whispers, "It's no big deal," the part that convinces you that this is normal, that everyone does it, that you deserve this small comfort. But that voice is not your ally. It is the very thing keeping you stuck. A man who cannot command himself is at the mercy of whatever controls him. And when you allow something so small to dictate your actions, how can you expect to stand firm in the face of greater challenges? This is why self-discipline isn't just about resisting temptation. It's about reclaiming your own mind. It's about proving to yourself that you are in control, that you are not just a product of habit, but a man who decides his own path. Every time you resist, you strengthen your will. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, you are breaking free from the chains you didn't even realize were holding you back. The chains that hold you in this cycle are not physical, but mental. And the only way to break free is through self-control. This is not a new idea. It was understood thousands of years ago by the greatest minds in history. Men like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius spent their lives mastering one thing above all: themselves. They knew that real strength doesn't come from power over others, but from power over one's own desires. What you're dealing with is not just a physical urge. It's not just a habit or a way to pass time. It's energy, mental, emotional, and physical energy that could be used for something greater. The ancient Stoics understood that a man's energy, especially his sexual energy, is one of his most valuable resources. Wasting it carelessly doesn't just drain the body, it weakens the mind. When you constantly seek instant pleasure, you train yourself to avoid struggle, to fear discomfort, to chase the easiest path rather than the right one. And in doing so, you lose the very thing that makes a man strong, his discipline. Self-discipline is the foundation of freedom. This is the core of Stoic philosophy. A man who cannot control himself is not truly free. He is a prisoner to his impulses, a servant to his cravings. He may believe he is making a choice, but in reality, his habits are making the choice for him. On the other hand, the man who controls his desires, who masters his mind instead of letting it control him, that is the man who is truly free. He is not swayed by fleeting pleasures or trapped by routine. He decides what he does, not his urges. It may seem difficult, even impossible, to break free from this cycle. But here's the truth. Your willpower is like a muscle. The more you resist, the stronger you become. At first, it will feel like a struggle. The temptation will be there. The familiar patterns will try to pull you back. But every time you say no, every time you choose to take control instead of giving it away, you are building something within yourself. And over time, that strength becomes unshakable. The paradox of discipline is simple. The man who controls himself is the man who is truly free. The man who gives in to pleasure, who cannot resist his urges, is the one in chains. But those chains are not locked. They have never been locked. You can break them at any moment. The only question is, will you? The truth is, self-discipline is not just a philosophical idea. It's deeply connected to how your brain and body function. When you give in to instant pleasure, you don't just weaken your willpower. You also weaken yourself biologically. Every time you release, your body pays a price. Your testosterone drops, your dopamine system becomes unbalanced, and your energy levels plummet. The same energy that could have been used to build strength, sharpen focus, and push you forward is wasted in a moment of fleeting pleasure. Science confirms what the Stoics have always taught. Pleasure should never control you. Studies show that frequent ejaculation lowers confidence, reduces motivation, and dulls mental clarity. This is not just about feeling tired afterward. It's about what happens over time. When you keep repeating the cycle, your body adapts to it. Your brain gets used to seeking quick pleasure, and your dopamine receptors become desensitized. This is how addiction works. Not just to substances, but to behaviors. Your brain begins to crave the easy high, and in doing so, it makes real-life challenges feel more difficult. Things that require effort, learning, working out, socializing, building a skill, start to seem dull or exhausting because they can't compete with the instant gratification you've trained your brain to chase. This is why so many men today struggle with focus, motivation, and self-confidence. They feel stuck, unable to move forward, constantly searching for distractions. It's not because they lack potential. It's because their energy is being drained. They have unknowingly programmed themselves to choose comfort over challenge, pleasure over purpose. And the more they do it, the harder it becomes to break free. But here's the good news. Just as your body weakens with bad habits, it strengthens with good ones. Scientific research shows that after just 7 days of retention, testosterone levels spike significantly. Men report feeling more assertive, mentally sharp, and full of energy. Their motivation increases, their focus improves, and their drive to take action becomes stronger. It's as if the body is reclaiming its natural power. The very thing that was being drained is now fueling them. This is what the Stoics understood long before science confirmed it. A man who is ruled by pleasure is a man who is ruled by weakness. But a man who controls himself, who chooses discipline over indulgence, is a man who cannot be shaken. And when that energy is redirected, when it is used to build, create, and grow, there is no limit to what he can achieve. The question is, will you take back control? Will you reclaim your strength? Or will you continue letting it slip away? What most people don't realize is that the damage isn't just physical. It's deeply psychological. After every release, there's an emptiness. It's not just about feeling guilty for a few minutes. It's something deeper. Confidence fades, motivation drops, and suddenly, everything feels a little harder. This isn't a coincidence. When you give in to urges, you're not just losing energy, you're losing trust in yourself. Over time, this chips away at your belief in your own strength. One of the biggest hidden costs is anxiety. Every time you escape into pleasure, you train your mind to run from discomfort instead of facing it. Life is full of challenges, but instead of building the habit of pushing through, you've created a pattern of avoidance. Your brain learns that anytime stress, boredom, or frustration shows up, there's an easy way out. And the more you take that escape, the harder real-life struggles feel. This is why so many men today find themselves anxious, unable to handle pressure, or constantly seeking distractions. It's not because they're naturally weak. It's because they've been conditioning themselves to avoid difficulty instead of confronting it. The Stoics understood this long ago. Strength isn't built through comfort. It's built through facing hardship and refusing to run from it. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they all spoke about the power of endurance. They believed that true freedom comes from being able to withstand pain, discomfort, and temptation without breaking. If you want to be unshakable, you have to train yourself to handle life as it is, not escape into fleeting pleasure. But here's the tricky part. Your brain is constantly tricking you. Every time you indulge, it gives you a short-lived sense of satisfaction, as if you've achieved something. It's a lie. That temporary high is replacing real accomplishment. Instead of building a business, learning a skill, or improving yourself, you're settling for an illusion of progress. And because it's easy, your brain keeps chasing it, while your real potential sits untouched. This is why great men throughout history, warriors, philosophers, leaders, avoided pleasure-seeking. They understood that discipline is power. The man who can control himself can control his destiny. Breaking free is not just about stopping a habit. It's about reclaiming your mind, your confidence, and your ability to face life without fear. Every moment of discomfort you endure without giving in makes you stronger. Every time you choose action over escape, you build real self-respect. And in time, that strength will spill into every part of your life. The question is, will you let your impulses rule you? Or will you take back control and become the man you were meant to be? When you break free from this cycle, everything changes. At first it feels like a struggle, like you're resisting an urge that has controlled you for so long. But then, something shifts. Your mind becomes clearer. Your energy levels rise, and you start to feel a sense of control that you may not have felt in years. The world begins to respond to you differently, not because of anything you say, but because of the energy you carry. People can sense it, especially women. Without realizing it, they pick up on the difference between a man who holds on to his power and a man who drains it daily. This isn't just about attraction. It's about presence. A man who retains his energy walks with a different posture, speaks with more certainty, and carries himself with quiet confidence. There's no desperation, no restless searching for validation. Instead of seeking pleasure, he creates purpose. His focus sharpens, his motivation strengthens, and his ability to handle challenges improves. This is the power shift that happens when you stop giving in to empty indulgence and start directing your energy towards something greater. Look at the men who truly shape the world. They aren't the ones wasting hours chasing pleasure. They're the ones conquering their own weaknesses, mastering their minds, and channeling their energy into building something meaningful. High-value men don't let their desires control them. They understand that every ounce of energy spent on fleeting pleasure is energy that could have been used to build wealth, create opportunities, and leave an impact. This is why the most successful men throughout history and even today discipline themselves in ways that most people can't. The Stoics knew this long before science confirmed it. Warriors, emperors, and great thinkers all understood that self-control is the foundation of power. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire in the world, not because he gave in to every urge, but because he mastered his mind. The same principle applies today. The men who leave legacies are not those who chase pleasure. They are the ones who resist it and use their strength to create something far greater. This is not about suppression. It's about transformation. Instead of being a slave to impulses, you become the master of your destiny. Instead of feeling weak and restless, you feel strong and driven. The choice is yours. Either continue draining your energy into nothing, or take control, harness your power, and start living with purpose. The moment you decide to break free is the moment your life begins to change. Even after realizing the damage, many men find themselves going back. It feels like an escape, a way to deal with stress, loneliness, or frustration. But in reality, it's not an escape, it's a trap. The momentary relief is just an illusion, a quick distraction that numbs discomfort for a few minutes, but leaves you feeling worse afterward. The cycle continues. Stress hits. The urge rises. You give in, and for a brief moment, it feels like the problem disappears. But then guilt sets in. Energy drains. Confidence slips. And the problems you are trying to avoid, they're still there, only now you feel weaker facing them. This is the lie of instant gratification. It promises relief, but delivers suffering. Every time you indulge, you reinforce the habit. Your brain learns that whenever discomfort appears, the easiest way to silence it is by seeking pleasure. Over time, this weakens your ability to handle stress. You become dependent on an escape rather than developing the strength to face life's difficulties head-on. The Stoics warned about this long ago. They understood that true freedom is not found in avoiding pain, but in mastering the mind. Seneca put it clearly. No man is free who is a slave to his body. If your actions are controlled by urges, if you cannot say no to yourself, then you are not in control. Breaking free requires awareness. Most men act on impulse without questioning why. They reach for an escape without realizing what they're running from. But when you become aware of your triggers, stress, boredom, loneliness, you take the first step toward real control. The next step is replacing the habit with something stronger. The Stoics trained themselves to face discomfort instead of avoiding it. Cold showers, fasting, exercise, and mental discipline. These were tools to build strength, not just physically, but mentally. When the urge to escape hits, instead of giving in, shift your focus. Go for a run, do push-ups, read something that sharpens your mind. Train yourself to respond differently, to channel that energy into something that makes you stronger. At first, it will be difficult. The mind will fight back, seeking the easy way out. But the more you resist, the stronger you become. Eventually, you will reach a point where you no longer crave an escape. Instead of running from discomfort, you'll embrace it, knowing that every moment of discipline is making you sharper, more powerful, more in control. This is the path to real freedom, the ability to face life's challenges without needing an escape, to own your mind and body instead of being ruled by them. The choice is always yours. Stay trapped in the cycle or break free and become the man you were meant to be. The first step to breaking free is awareness, truly understanding how much control you've lost. Most men go through life on autopilot, acting on impulse without realizing they are being controlled by their habits. But once you become aware, you can no longer ignore the truth. You start to see the pattern clearly. Every time you give in, you weaken yourself. Every time you resist, you grow stronger. This is where change begins, not with shame, not with regret, but with a decision to take back control. Reprogramming your mind means replacing the habit with something that builds you up instead of breaking you down. When the urge comes, don't run from it. Redirect it. Use that energy to train your body. Read something that strengthens your mind. Meditate to develop inner stillness, or push yourself into challenges that force you to grow. The key is to stop avoiding discomfort. Instead of escaping into temporary pleasure, lean into the struggle. Every great man in history, every warrior, every philosopher who achieved mastery over himself, understood this simple truth. Strength is built in hardship. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort, fasting, cold exposure, physical training, not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they knew it made them unbreakable. This is how you reclaim your power. Every time you resist the urge, you prove to yourself that you are in control. Every time you replace weakness with action, you move closer to the man you were meant to be. The ancient warriors understood this deeply. They knew that their energy, their focus, their aggression were all tied to self-discipline. They didn't waste their power on empty pleasure. They channeled it into battle, into strategy, into building empires. This same energy lives in you. The only question is whether you will use it or waste it. Over time, you'll notice the transformation. You will walk differently, speak with more confidence, think with more clarity. Your presence will change, and others will feel it. You will no longer be the man who leaks his power away. You will be the man who owns it. This is not just about breaking a habit. It is about reclaiming your identity, becoming someone who is driven by purpose rather than pleasure. The choice is always yours. Stay the same, stuck in the cycle, or step into the man you were meant to be. The brutal truth is this: if you don't take control of yourself now, life will do it for you. And life is unforgiving to men who are ruled by their impulses. Every moment you waste trapped in this cycle, you are training yourself to be weaker. Every time you give in, you make it harder to break free. Most men never escape because they don't take this seriously. They tell themselves they'll stop one day, but that day never comes. Years pass, and they remain stuck, tired, unmotivated, and wondering why nothing in their life ever changes. But you're different. If you've made it this far, it means you see the chains. You recognize the control this habit has over you, and that awareness alone separates you from the masses. But awareness isn't enough. Knowing the problem without acting on it is the same as being blind to it. You must decide, right now, whether you will keep living under the rule of your desires or whether you will break free. There is no in-between. You either control yourself or you are controlled. It's time to stop waiting. No more empty promises, no more excuses. You don't need another day to prepare. You don't need the perfect moment to start. The only thing standing between you and a stronger, more disciplined life is your decision in this very moment. The battle is happening now, not tomorrow, not next week. Right now, and it's won through action. Every urge you resist is a victory. Every moment of discipline is proof that you are in control. The Stoics knew that mastery over oneself is the foundation of greatness. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they all understood that a man who is ruled by pleasure is not free. He is a prisoner, shackled by his own desires. The only way out is discipline. You don't need more information. You don't need more motivation. You need to act. From this moment forward, make the choice to control yourself. Because if you don't, something else always will.